Situate Animal Shelter, how can we help you?
Every year, more than 1,000 animals in trouble find help at the Situate Animal Shelter. Some find themselves lost or unwanted and abandoned. Some are in need of urgent medical care and a place to rest and heal. And some just need to learn to trust again. All of them find love and hope and a second chance at a happy ending with us. These are their stories.
What's his name?
This is Rocky.
Rocky. Good.
Come on. He's a baby.
Jimmy came to the shelter in 2014 with a sadly familiar story. Like many hunting dogs in rural areas, once he became too old to hunt, he had simply been abandoned and left to fend for himself during a freezing Massachusetts winter. Animal care director Ashley Davis learned about Jimmy and a second dog in urgent need of help and called on a trusted volunteer to transport them to the shelter. It would prove to be a fateful meeting for both Jimmy and the kind volunteer who thought that his dog-owning days were behind.
I said, I'm not going to get another dog because at my age, I was over 80. I don't want the dog to outlive me and then have to give him up again. Yeah. So I became a volunteer here.
Jimmy was lucky to be rescued. Many senior dogs are not even given that chance.
So, although Jimmy was 12 years old, we were hoping that his sweetness and how cute he was would find him a home, because senior dogs are harder to find a home for, especially when you get up to 12, 13, 14. We tend to take in quite a few senior dogs because not a lot of shelters really are willing to take that risk.
When I first saw Jimmy and Penny, Jimmy looked very thin. He was a bag of bones. Then I think it was the next day or a couple of days after that, it was my turn to be a dog walker. And the first one I was assigned to was Jimmy. Went into his kennel, and he jumped on me. And I said, I think I'm going to rethink about another adoption. So we got along well. I loved it. It was love at first sight, I thought.
Jim and Jimmy left the shelter together a few days later, and they haven't left each other's sides much since that time. The animals who find families through us are thrilled when it is their time to go home, but so are the staff and volunteers.
So stories like Jimmy are some of my favorite, just because I love to see senior dogs matched up with sometimes senior people that need a friend too. So we've had a lot of awesome senior adoptions where the people seem to need a dog just as much as the dog needs them.
It's not just dogs who find help and happy endings at the Situate Animal Shelter. In 2014 alone, 113 feral and stray cats were humanely trapped, neutered, and then safely returned to their outdoor homes as part of a highly successful program to reduce the number of hungry and homeless cats in Massachusetts. In all, more than 500 cats and kittens came through the shelter doors last year, many looking for new families to give them a second chance. Some had to wait longer than others, but their reward was finding a home of their own.
Would you like to come home with me?
One September morning in 2013, workers at a popular local garden center arrived for work to a very sad sight: a frightened and injured young cat with wounds that seemed consistent with an animal attack.
Oh, we all remember Kennedy the cat. Wonderful cat. He was found at Kennedy's garden, and he had a lot of bites on him that were deep. So he was on quarantine immediately for 6 months. He was a love. The staff was the only ones that could take care of him. The volunteers, we couldn't, but we always looked in, and he'd roll, and he, you knew he was purring. So finally, the quarantine was over, and a family was interested in adopting him. And I think for 2 days, Kennedy was so overwhelmed because all of us, the volunteers, had to go in, pet him, finally get to be able to touch this gorgeous buff and white cat.
The day that Kennedy was released from quarantine, a young married couple in search of their first pet happened to visit the shelter.
I've just always loved cats. They kind of have a kind of spirit that calms you down, even if they're a diva or whatever they can be. So I like having a cat around.
It was the best cat. We have a lot of best cats, but he was really the best cat because he was so beautiful and so calm and sweet that you couldn't help fall in love with him between the glass.
As Kennedy's story demonstrates, the volunteers of the Scituate Animal Shelter get very attached to their charges. They are at the shelter 365 days a year, on Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's, and through blizzards and heat waves.
So it would be really nice if we lived in Santa Barbara and had beautiful sunny 70-degree weather every day, but the reality is that it is hot and humid and sticky with bugs and poison ivy. We have the long cold winters and we have amazing volunteers who come and snow plow so that we can walk them somewhere through the snow. So I think the key to being a dog walker in Massachusetts would be you need your gear. You need to invest in some good wellies, and you need coats and gloves, and you can't be trying to look too pretty. You just gotta do it.
Despite the hardships, or maybe because of them, the volunteers develop real bonds with the animals in their care. And sometimes, if they're lucky, the relationship can continue even after the animal has left the shelter. Griff, a 10-year-old Australian Shepherd mix, was brought to the shelter after being found wandering homeless and hungry and alone in a farm community in western Massachusetts. Shelter life for dogs like Griff can be stressful, but all of the dogs at the shelter can count on a warm bed, good food, and walks through the trails, woods, and neighborhoods surrounding the shelter grounds.
So when a dog first comes to the shelter, there's two different things that need to be done. They need to be caught up on all medical, and then they need to have a full behavior evaluation. So usually we let them settle in for a couple of days, kind of testing them to see if they're going to be good with cats, dogs, kids. Do they need a quiet home, or do they need more activity than your normal dog? And do they have any behavior issues that they need to work on?
Griff's sweet, calm, and patient quality proved to be just what Gene White of Cohasset's Holly Hill Farm was looking for in a new farm dog. As the resident dog at a local farm, Griff is living the good life.
You can see he's not a ball of fire. But he doesn't have to be. So we are an organic farm here in Cohasset, Massachusetts, and we've been an organic farm, vegetable farm, since 1998. We've always had dogs in our family. One of our first jobs over here is to feed all the animals over here. So we start with the horses, and then the goats, and then the bunny, and then the chickens. And in the meantime, Griff wanders around. When he's tired of that, he goes into the office and he finds a nice soft bed. And that basically is where he spends his morning.
So I walk my own dogs in the woods and the trails at Holly Hill Farm all the time. So I get to see Griff all the time. And it makes me incredibly happy that he's so happy and that he basically just like won the dog lottery. And as a volunteer here, I can say that all the volunteers, all the staff members, we all want this for every single one of the animals that comes through these doors. We want them to have a second shot at a happy ending and a really happy life. It's what we want for all the animals.
Griff has been a wonderful addition to the farm, and the fact that he came from a shelter makes the relationship even more meaningful.
Our favorite dogs have been shelter dogs. Absolutely. I love the fact that they need a home, that something has happened traumatic, usually in their lives, and one has an opportunity to try to make things as good as possible for them in the times they have left. They're great companions, and I would recommend it heartily.
Since its humble beginnings in 1992, the Scituate Animal Shelter has helped literally thousands of animals like Jimmy, Kennedy, and Griff. With ambitious future plans for improving the quality of life for companion animals of the South Shore, it is on target to help countless more.
We at Scituate Animal Shelter have a mission to make sure that every pet has a safe and loving home, forever home.
Home, that's probably my favorite part of the whole thing, of everything that I do. You know, especially we have some tricky animals here sometimes, and you always kind of wonder what is going to be the right spot for this animal. And when that person finally shows up, I mean, there's nothing like it.
But when you come into the shelter and you see on their kennel door that there's a pending adoption, you know, it's just a really happy moment, and you can look down at that dog and say, oh, you have a home, you're going home, yeah.
Our staff is amazing. Our volunteers are incredible. We have 140 volunteers or more who dedicate their free time to helping the pets that come through our doors. And we take such great care of all the pets that come into Scituate Animal Shelter. And that's why we like to say the lucky ones come to us.